Hi everyone. I just thought I'd just jump on here because obviously haven't spoken to you for a while and we haven't done a new video for a while. So today, over these two lessons, I thought we'd do what's known in the trade as a bit of a pause lesson. Now, what I've noticed from marking your big picture introductions the other day is that some people are just explaining the basics rather than sort of coming up and forming an argument, really, that they can then follow through as they come through the essay. So we're going to have a look at that today, but we're not just going to look at the poetry. So we are going to do like a little bit of a flashback, and we're going to spend some time looking at how we construct really, really good big picture SoPs for Macbeth and also for A Christmas Carol. So that is where we're going to start today.
Okay, so for the first part of this lesson today, we're going to look at a question that you could potentially get on the exam paper for Macbeth. So this would be Literature Paper 1, and this would be the first question. So this would be from your section A. Now, what you need to be really, really careful at is looking actually what the question is. Now, what you'll be aware of is that on Literature Paper 1, all of the questions provide you with an extract, and as we've discussed before, the examiner wants to therefore see you comment on the extract. If you ignore the extract and you perform absolutely no analysis from it, then you will be capped at level 2. So you won't go any higher in the mark scheme than around that level, which would absolutely hinder your potential. So just be aware of it. Now, whilst I haven't printed an extract here, because as you can see, I've just written down a question, for this extract we'd be looking at Act 1, Scene 5, which is actually the scene where, you should know this is actually the scene where Lady Macbeth receives the letter from her husband that he has sent to her, telling her that he has been made the Thane of Cawdor. So the question that could potentially be printed that we're going to look at today is explore or explain how Lady Macbeth is presented as a powerful figure within the play. Now, when it comes to writing really good SOPs, so statements of purposes, essentially that's just a really strong introduction. It's an introduction that has an argument within it, and that's what we're going to refer to them to as SOP. Is you have to make a decision whether you feel that Lady Macbeth is presented as a powerful figure. Do you think she's a powerful figure? Do you not? Or can you present some sort of balanced argument, suggest that she is in some ways and she isn't in others? Or do you go completely against the grain? So you're looking at this idea of a powerful figure. Now, you will have your own ideas about whether you think that she's powerful or not. For the most part, I am going to make the argument that I don't think she's powerful. Okay? And I need to come up with some reasons for that I'm going to use on here. So I'm just going to write no, just to remind myself that that's the overall direction that I go. I'm going to make the suggestion that she's quite manipulative, and the fact that Shakespeare uses the character device of Lady Macbeth to warn about potential danger of power in females. Okay, now I'm doing that primarily because I know that then I can weave in some contextual ideas about the fact that this was written within a patriarchal society, that we were warned about the dangers of anyone sort of trying to overthrow the king, so that act of regicide that Shakespeare is so closely potentially referring to the gunpowder plot and the attempt to overthrow King James. So I'm going to say that she's not powerful in the sense that she doesn't actually have any tangible power. Macbeth is not even king when she tries to exert her authority over him. She's not necessarily a powerful figure, but she's a manipulative and potentially powerful figure within her marriage, within her relationship. That doesn't mean that she's a powerful figure at large, and I think that's quite an important distinction to make. So you could say only within her own relationship, not a powerful figure in the wider context, primarily as a result of her gender. Okay, now what we have to do, now you'll see that I've drawn my anchor line going down because I thought it gave me a little bit more space. Now if you're more comfortable drawing your anchor line landscape, then do that now, but at this point now you should have all of the annotations on your piece of paper or within your book that I've got here. So if you do need to pause, press pause now, copy down what's on the screen and then pick it up again in a minute. So we're going to be thinking very carefully about where we plot our extract on the anchor line. Now it's from Act 1 Scene 5, that's pretty soon on in the thing, so we're going to start with the extract here. So I'm going to make sure I use my right colour here. So I'm going to plot 3 key anchor points. Now we've been doing this quite a lot in class, so we know that we're going to try and follow it through, and we're going to try and write our paragraphs in chronological order. So I'm going to start up here. This is 1-5. Now I haven't got the extract in front of me, but I am going to have to use it, so if you do need to grab your copy of the playtext, do. That's absolutely fine. Within this, you'll remember that she reads the letter, and we need to think about how she could be seen to be powerful in terms of her relationship with Macbeth, in terms of how manipulative she could potentially be. So I'm going to I haven't got my copy of the text, you can see this, so I'm having to do this from memory, which is not what you have to do in the exam because you'll have the extract there, but you do need to be aware of it. So she says, art not without ambition. She also says, I do fear thy nature, it is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Look at that. Memory. I haven't been thinking about Macbeth for a long time. So, art not without ambition. So she says, yeah, he's got the art, but he's got no desire to do it. So she's really concerned about whether. So she's like, you know, art. She's got the ability. He's got the flair to do it. Bearing in mind that we know already, and you could drop these in drop embedding, that Macbeth is brave, noble, worthy, valiant cousin. He's a soldier. He's fighting for King Duncan's army. Of course he's able to kill a king. He's got the raw ability, but he hasn't got the ambition. We have to question whether actually not having the ambition to kill the king is to be seen as a negative, or whether actually Shakespeare is using Lady Macbeth to show that her perception of what is healthy ambition is awry, is not really fit with what ambition should be seen to be within this time period, within this Jacobean era. So, art not without ambition. I do fear thy nature. So she's scared of him. She's scared of how sort of mild he is. Too full of the milk of human kindness. Now, what you could talk about here, if you wanted to do some analysis, I know I'm just showing you how to plan, but if you wanted to do some analysis, you can talk about this, this almost like baby-like image, and make the point that children can't survive in their infancy without their mothers, that they need them. So is she suggesting that Macbeth is childlike or like a baby, and she is like this maternal figure, but this subverted maternal figure? So make sure you make that point, that it's a subverted image. So this subverted maternal image. Okay. She talks about that she wants him to come so she can pour her spirits in thy hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear. Now, you've got the polysemous nature of this. I know we've talked about this time and time again, but I'm trying to craft my argument that I don't think she's powerful. So you've got two interpretations. So you've got this idea of alcohol, this idea of poison, that it alters people's perception, it alters their reality, it makes them sometimes make decisions that they might not have done. But you've also got this link to the supernatural. And I think this is where you really can come into your own. She needs to pour her spirits in his ear. She needs to pour her supernatural elements. It's quite a lot of critical reading that suggests that actually Lady Macbeth has got supernatural powers, that she is potentially to be seen as a witch herself. This would make an audience dislike Lady Macbeth, because it was drummed into them that they should not fraternise with the supernatural, that they should be wary of it. We know about the witch trials, we know what they did to potential witches, and so almost linking Lady Macbeth with the supernatural, giving her qualities of potentially a witch, would show us that actually she's not powerful, but she is something to be wary of, and she's something that we shouldn't necessarily enter into conversational dialogue with or believe. So the link to supernatural. But what this does is it takes away her power, and this is my argument. It takes away her power. She needs the supernatural influence to convince her husband. Okay? And that's my first point. So I'm trying to show that while she thinks that she is powerful, and she may in her own head think that she has power over her husband, I am going to make the argument that she has a distorted vision of reality, that she thinks that you should be ambitious enough to want to commit an act of regicide. She suggests that she is going to have to mother him, but this is again shows a lack of understanding, because it's not really a pure maternal image. Remember that she later, if you're going to link your ideas, that she later says that she would have dashed her baby's brains out. The quotation is, "I would, whilst it was smiling in my face, have plucked its nipple from my boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this." She's not maternal in any way. Instead, she tries to exert this sort of controlling force over him, which actually we could interpret as a supernatural force. Okay, so actually we can link then that theme throughout the play, that it's not other characters who have power over one of another, it is the dangerous influence of the supernatural. Okay, so then we have to go to another point within the play, so I'm just going to move this up, and we're going to go to anchor point 2. Now here we need to show that she's not powerful. So the way we can do that is either show that she lacks power or show that somebody else is more powerful than her. What I would do for this then is I would pop over, just pop over, to think about the power that Macbeth holds. Because this is how we can really ascertain what power is. In the eyes of society, he is powerful because you can use the semantic field of heroism. He is respected at the start. What he also realises is that his power is limited. He foreshadows this really early when he asks the question, "Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" He realises that his power is temporary, and maybe that makes him more powerful than Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth does not understand that she has not got the power over her husband or over the situation. Macbeth, subconsciously, I think, knows that his power is limited. It is borrowed. It's temporary. Okay, it's time bound. But what he does do, and the way that you can compare the power that they have, is he actually tells her that he won't do it. We will proceed no further in this business. He tells her categorically, we're not going to do it. He uses this euphemism for murder continually. And you see that the deed, business, deal, all of these sort of transactional language that the Macbeths use. So he says, we'll proceed no further in this business. And he stands up to his wife and he sort of says, no, we're not going to do it. What you also see, if you want to talk about Macbeth's power a little bit more, he goes on and he arranges murder of Banquo and Fleance alone. Okay, he does this alone. The quotation that you should know, he says to her, be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Okay? Be innocent of the knowledge. He is not bringing her into it at all. And he calls her dearest Chuck, this term of endearment, showing that he cares for her, he actually protects her, he's protecting her in a different way to the way in which she thinks she's protecting him with this subverted maternal image of earlier. Okay, come over to our third anchor point. Let's go right to the end of the play. That looks a bit skewy. Maybe that's easier to see on the screen like that. Let's come right to the end of the play where we see that actually Lady Macbeth has lost all power. She's lost all control of herself and her sense of self. Let's go to the sleepwalking scene right at the very end of the play. We see that she has lost all her, we're not going to call it power, we're going to call it perceived power, because we're trying to make the argument that she hasn't got any power, or I'm trying to make the argument that she hasn't got any power. So she's lost all of her previously perceived power to guilt. This has left her completely powerless. Okay? You can talk about what's done is done. What's done cannot be undone. You can talk about outdone Spot. You can also talk about the fact that she always insists that she has the light with her. Whatever you want to do, the ritual washing of her hands, the idea that she can't overcome it, she can't control herself, she can't control her emotions, that all of her power has been stripped away by the guilt that she feels, okay, which is in part as a result of the supernatural, that they have both listened to the supernatural. They have, whether Lady Macbeth has summoned spirits or not, she has listened to her husband, who has listened to the witches. So their lack of power is a byproduct. Let's write this actually, because it's quite a good point. Their lack of power is a byproduct of their cultivated fraternity with the supernatural. I'm not just going to say the witches, we're just going to say the supernatural at large, okay, because we need to bring the hallucinations into that. So what we've got there, you won't be able to see it all, but we've got a plan. Now remember at the start of the video I told you that I'm really primarily trying to work on how we write really, really good introductions, how we write really strong statements of purpose. So this is my plan. I don't think that you can go bang into an exam, that you can write a really, really good argument, a really good SOP, which has an argument at its heart, unless you've done the planning, because you don't know how your essay will develop. So I'll just grab my trusty notebook, and I suggest you do the same. If you're in your exercise book, you just need a new sheet. So let's find a blank page that we can write on. Okay, so it doesn't need to be very long, and I think that's really important. You also do not need any analysis in your SOP. You can drop embed quotations if you want to, but you don't have to. So let's just do a little rules for this. So rules for effective SOPs. And I want every single person to have this in their book. So if you ever need to remind yourself of how to do it, how to write a really good introduction, you can come back to this. SOP is introduction, okay? It stands for statement of purpose. Okay, what is the purpose of your essay? What are you setting to outline? What are you going to argue for or against, essentially? So what you have to do is, there is no analysis you must refer to the writer or the poet if you're writing poetry. Why have they done what they've done? You also need to make sure that you have some form of argument. I haven't written form there. Some form of argument. Now what I mean by argument is not that it's not like having a verbal argument with somebody where you just go absolutely gung-ho for your point and you don't take into consideration anything else. What I mean by an argument is having a strong opinion. A strong opinion that you can refer to throughout. And that's really what the examiner needs to see. They need to see that you have got this idea from your reading of whatever text, and that you can use evidence from throughout whichever text you're studying to back up what you were originally saying. Okay, so what we're now going to do is have a look at how we would potentially write the SOP for the essay that we've just planned together. It's quite hard to do this live, so bear with me because I'll have to think as I write, because I haven't pre-done it or anything like that. What I do know is from my planning that I am going to say that we don't think that Lady Macbeth is necessarily a powerful figure, but she holds some form of power within her own relationship at the start of the play, as an initial reaction to the witch's prophecy. She's not, however, a powerful figure in the wider context. Moreover, Shakespeare uses her as a character device. Okay, and I think that's a really important thing for you to remember at this point, is that these characters in all of these texts that we study are not real people. They are devices. What I mean by a device is that they stand for something. So they either embody an idea, or they represent a theme, okay, or they represent something that the writer is really pleased about or really unhappy about. Okay, so let's have a look at this then. We need to write a SOP in really good English. You don't want it to sound like you're having a chat with the examiner. You need it to sound academic, and you need it to sound fluent. Now, whilst we have got a year in year 11, it's not really a full year, but we've got time in year 11 to work on this. Practicing this now is a really good idea. So I am going to start with whilst, and you can do this as I write it, and if you need to pause it, or if you just want to watch me do it first and then write it up, then do whatever way works best for you. So whilst many may consider Lady Macbeth to be responsible for her husband's downfall, which could show how she is capable of exerting power, it could be suggested that ultimately she is no more than a manipulative counterpart to his actions. Okay, that feels like quite a long sentence even for me, but whilst many may consider Lady Macbeth to be responsible for her husband's downfall, which could show how she is capable of exerting power, it could be suggested, I'm going to put however in there, it could be suggested, however, that ultimately she is no more than a manipulative counterpart to his actions. Okay, now you can see that I've had to reread that and I've had to put the however in, but all that's really saying is that yes, you might think she's powerful because you may blame Macbeth's downfall and death on her, but really she's just a counterpart. She's just almost like an accessory. Lady Macbeth initially shows her private concerns over her husband's, and I'm going to drop embed here, ambition. Yet Macbeth is the one who makes all of the significant decisions. Shakespeare could be said to employ Lady Macbeth as a character device to warn audiences, remember this is a place we have to say audiences about the potential danger of females who attempt to both gain and abuse power. Shakespeare reveals through her character that misguided manipulation, confused with power, is inherently catastrophic. Okay, so let's just read that back and see if that sounds like we are actually forming an argument. So whilst many may consider Lady Macbeth to be responsible for her husband's downfall, which could show how she is capable of exerting power, it could be suggested, however, that ultimately she is no more than a manipulative counterpart to his actions. Lady Macbeth initially shows her private concerns over her husband's ambition, yet Macbeth is the one who makes all of the significant decisions. Shakespeare could be said to employ Lady Macbeth as a character device to warn audiences about the potential danger of females who attempt to both gain and abuse power. Shakespeare reveals through her character that misguided manipulation confused with power is inherently catastrophic. Okay, and then what you'd be able to do is you would go back to your plan, and that would all link to that she had her doubts, but that actually she's not powerful. She's just she's able to verbalise her fears, that she's not got the power. You might link in here that she attempts to be manipulative, that she wants to pour spirits which could distort her husband, but actually she does almost seem to be presented as conjuring the supernatural to her. She does make several references to that as well. She says, "Come you spirits who tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here," a little bit later as well. You would then talk about the fact that actually Macbeth is what we could consider to be a powerful figure in the way in which he's presented at the start of the play, and the way in which he is rewarded for his bravery, which is shown through the semantic field of heroism, and also through King Duncan rewarding him with the title Thane of Cawdor. But you might talk about the fact that even he knows that his power is limited. It might be worth talking about the fact that ultimate power always laid with the king, in line with the divine right of kings, which audiences at the time, contemporaneous audiences, would have definitely believed in and understood. Then you would talk about her absolute lack of power at the end, that she never really had power. She's lost all her previously perceived power to guilt, and it's left her absolutely completely powerless. And and the fact that this lack of power is a byproduct of their cultivated fraternity with the supernatural. So you might draw it back to this overall argument that actually it is the supernatural that holds all power within Shakespeare's era, which is why Shakespeare was warning people against fraternising with it, because it was not power for good but power for evil. Okay, so that is that. What I'd now like you to do then, make sure that you've got all of these notes, make sure that you've got a full anchor plan, that you've actually got an example of a SOP written down with an argument, and that will be the end of your first lesson of today. What I am then going to do, and I'll link this over on Show My Homework for your second lesson, so feel free to do it straight now or come back to it if you're working to your timetable, is have a look at this. So we're going to look at a different text now, but with the same guiding principles. So this is a question that could be used for A Christmas Carol. Again, starting with the extract because it's literature paper 1. So starting with this extract, explore how Dickens presents ideas about poverty within the novel. Okay, poverty. Stave 3, Cratchit family introduction. So where the ghost of Christmas Present first takes Scrooge to the Cratchit family house, and we see them getting ready for their Christmas celebrations. Now this is a question on poverty. So you've got to be thinking about the big message that Dickens was also trying to present within A Christmas Carol. What was he trying to say about poverty? Remember that there are 2 types of poverty that Dickens explores within this novella. He explores the idea of financial poverty, so what we would actually commonly just refer to as poverty, and also this idea of emotional poverty, and actually which is worse. So I wonder whether you would try to make the argument that the whole novella was Dickens's way of dealing with the fact that actually emotional poverty is far more detrimental to the way in which people live their lives and their happiness than financial poverty. And you could talk about, in line with that actually the power of the family and the power of love is more important than the power of the coin. Okay, so for your second lesson of today, I would like you to write out this question exactly as it is on here, draw your anchor line, plot your 3 points, think about where stave 3 comes on the anchor line. Is that going to be point 1, 2, 3 when you're writing in chronological order? And I'd like you to see you fill out this plan exactly like this. Okay, you do not need to write the SOP for this question now. That will come with your next lesson. So for today, the second lesson of today, I'd like you to do a full plan for the Cratchit family question on poverty here. Okay, good luck.